debating. Let me unmute him. I'm sorry.
We are live. We're gonna do a little fun show for the people tuning in tonight. Boston Vegas here, along with Burn Your Bridges, doing a simulcast of this great debate, and also we got Fox News up in the corner there. We got Inf0war's feed. Actually, just can you make that Inf0war's feed full screen there?
Yeah, I've got it not full screen because unfortunately I can't unmute it if it's full screen. So whenever you're done talking, I'll make it full screen.
Okay.
But this is Robert Barnes up on the top.
Can you scroll that up so you can see his face?
Yeah, I was just showing the title.
Okay, there you go.
At least that might be a little better. I was just showing the title on there.
Perfect. It's fine.
And whenever you're done,
look at this. Woman trespasses into zoo to feed a monkey. How stupid can you be?
I mean,
she's yo, those. Oh my god, look at that. She's fucking walk. Oh, she must have been high on something. Let me just make sure the feed is coming in good on YouTube.
All right. Do you want me to unmute Robert so you can see if you can hear him on your screen?
Yeah, try that.
Funded by Qatar, a government that is the primary and principal backer.
Works. And don't make it and leave it at half volume too, because that was perfect volume.
And the first Arab threat going back to General Khalid and the first rise of the Arab Caliphate was to use the values of the opposing empire against them through means and methods of deception. So they've taken old Nazi anti-Semitic conspiracy theories and other anti-Jewish
Can you lower it for a sec?
Conspiracy theories to convince people that Israel is behind everything from the black.
So, how are you playing it and listening to it without getting any feedback? Like, where's your microphone? Like, where?
My microphone is actually like the webcam. It's a crappy one, but like it's all in the same Discord like application. Like I have another laptop over here that I was trying to set up, and that's the other account that I had you admin the other day. And I'm just gonna have that one just like running streams throughout the day, but then I can come in on the account and talk. Yeah. But I don't know. It's just normal one app right now running, and there's no feedback. I don't know if I could send you a screenshot of my settings if you want to compare it to yours.
I'll tell you what. No, the feed looks good on. I like it like that. 4 squares. Me and you at the bottom. We got Fox feed on one side, the Inf0war feeds on the other side on top of us. And then we could just basically do our own show. And then, like, as they bring up subjects and we see different headlines, we could discuss those. And then we could also rely on the real news links here in the Discord. So if I click on that, so the only thing is if I click on that, okay, so then, yeah, the whole screen goes to that. But that's okay. So then if I click back on... Let's see. I gotta click back on which room were we in again? Inf0war's live.
Yeah, it's all. I put it all the way at the bottom because it was like kind of my. I want to like get in the way of your Discord, bro. At the end of the day.
So that's. I was just trying to figure it out. So okay. So.
Hey, you want to do a shot?
I actually would if I had some. Maybe that's a good idea. Maybe I'll go. Walk to the gas station with my dog's larceny, huh? What is that, a whiskey?
Yeah, it's a Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey, which apparently is the same thing as whiskey. It's just if it's in Kentucky. Oh, yeah, there's one.
Nick is on.
Yep, yeah.
But we gotta cut. We gotta cut in and out. Every couple of minutes or so. We can't just let it play straight through because we'll definitely get a strike like that. So let's just
know.
Yeah, all right.
Hostile enemies, and they were the subject of an invasion from Arab coalition forces 4 times in the 20th century. And so long story short, I've heard all the arguments. I've made those arguments myself. But what I started to realize once I got to college with
I went to college in 2016 was my freshman year, which coincided with the 2016 election and the rise of Donald Trump. My disposition politically started to change from more of like a neoconservative, neoliberal position to a properly America First disposition. And I looked at the situation in conservative media, particularly at thought leaders like Ben Shapiro, Dennis Prager, Mark Levin, and many others, and I said, what's with the focus on Israel? Because I would find that when I was trying to find coverage of issues like the economy or the election or immigration, I would find article after article after article about Israel and Palestine from Prager University, Daily Wire, Breitbart, etc. And I used to wonder, what's with the focus from conservative media on this issue? And over time, I realized the answer. It's that the people that were running those outfits were Jewish Zionists who had a special interest. They had a special sort of allegiance to Israel because of their ethnicity. They are hardcore Jewish Zionists, and so they use their platform to promulgate a pro-Israel message, and particularly about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And so I started to peel back the layers and say, well, what the America First position on Israel, and that it is simply that we must suspend our foreign aid to Israel, and we must stop the one-sided, unconditional aid that we give to this country. It can't be justified on strategic grounds, moral grounds, really any other grounds. I heard Robert, and I think we'll get into this, as he close, say that, well, Israel and America have this common fight against so-called Islamofascism, and we can share intelligence. Israel provides a strategic location, and we both are against Islamofascism. That is the benefit, and that's why we give them so much aid. And I would posit that the reason we support them is not for any interest that Israel serves on our end. It's because of a powerful and influential Israel lobby. We know that Donald Trump was funded by Sheldon Adelson. He was a single-issue donor. He was also the largest individual donor in the 2016 and 2020 elections, and we know what his issue was. And so I would say that the reason we have this America Last, Israel First foreign policy, even unfortunately in the Trump administration too, because of special interest and money, not because Israel provides any special benefits to America, because they don't.
All right, you took about 4 minutes as well. Again, that's Nick Fuentes. And I have a lot of questions that I can get to here and where I'd like to go. And I've got some of those coming up, but I don't want to taint this debate with my questions up front like the mainstream media does, staged can debates. So now I'm going to give you both a chance to address each other with an opening question. So let's go to Barnes first. Barnes, in 1 minute, and then you'll have 2 minutes.
Yeah.
What is your criticism?
Let lower Alex for a sec.
Position on Israel, and then he can respond to it.
Sure.
All right, that's pretty cool. I didn't know that. So Alex Jones is hosting it?
Yep.
Okay. And then so we'll let the interview play out for a few minutes here. We'll cut back in another few minutes. And then I'll mute my mic on the streaming software if I need to talk to you on the side, okay?
Okay, sounds good.
All right.
By foreign nations, but is being driven by our own U.S. institutional interest in order to procure leverage. Some people call foreign aid bribery or extortion. Sometimes it works as both. Is the fact that Israel's historic enemies get 5 times more than Israel does from the United States in foreign aid. Indeed, if you look at a per capita basis for global aid, the Palestinians are the #1 recipient per capita of foreign aid around the world. The question with foreign aid becomes, if let's say today we stop foreign aid, let's say we don't give any more military aid to Israel, it would basically be about a 3% budget increase for them to cover the gap. The real impact won't really be on Israel. The impact will be on the United States. We will no longer have the leverage that foreign aid buys. Reason why we give so much aid to Egypt and Iraq and Afghanistan and Sudan and so many other Islamic nations. And so the question is, do we really want to forfeit all of our leverage by foregoing military aid and foreign aid, especially when most of that foreign aid ends up spent on U.S. defense industry and U.S. jobs?
Okay, so what is your response to that?
No, I don't.
Yeah, well, I would say, so to get on that last point, you said that the foreign aid subsidizes American defense industry, but Israel, unlike any other country, gets to spend 26% of their foreign military financing on their own defense industry. Unlike any other country, no other country gets a deal spend it, a quarter of it domestically. I would also say, what exactly is the leverage that we're buying? Almost every American interest that we have in the Middle East, particularly in Israel-Palestine, Israel disobeys Assad. You know, for example, Donald Trump, in one of his first press conferences in 2017 with Bibi Netanyahu, turned to him and said, hey, we'd appreciate it if you stop expanding these civilian settlements in the West Bank, which has been the official U.S. policy for the West Bank since 1967. And then Netanyahu went and authorized the largest expansion of civilian settlements in the West Bank in history. And we know that this has been the policy of Israel since 1967, is expanding settlements in the West Bank against the interests of America, against what America wants. We also know that Israel is not signing the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. They refuse to ratify the Chemical and Biological Weapons Convention, which America wants them to do that. We also know that Israel is trying to create conflict in Syria. In 2017, America said they were no longer pursuing regime change against Bashar Assad in Syria, and Israel continues to conduct airstrikes in Syria against the interests of America. So those are just a few examples, but you can find a lot of others. Israel spies on us, they steal our technology, they sell it to the Chinese. Israel is doing all kinds of things, and I would just question, and maybe this is a retort to Robert, maybe he can answer this, what exactly have we purchased with this foreign aid? What leverage have we used from Israel? Because from where I'm sitting, I look at our relationship with them, we tell them to do things, they disobey us, and the few instances when they accede to our demands, they only do it because we provide them with additional aid. We have to spend more money to get them to do.
So, Robert Barnes, that's a good. We, the people here in America, or the national interest of the United States, getting from Israel.
So, from Trump's perspective, what he was getting was a critical and essential element of fundamentalism and Islamo-fascism, and he believes he achieved that. And in my view, like, take the settlement issue. If Trump was really interested in restraining settlements, they would have restrained settlements. There's the public position, and then there's the behind-the-scenes position. But let's talk about the settlement position as an example. This is Israel allowing Jewish citizens to build land in country that legally they occupy. The Arab demand is that no Jews be allowed to build land that the Palestinians illegally occupy. So why it is we should go along and demand ethnic cleansing of Israel's legally occupied lands is something I've never understood. Now, Trump needed to take that position formally because it's the Western position and publicly, but if anybody thinks he privately pushed it, I think they're poorly mistaken. The reality is Trump got precisely what he wanted. He wanted Israel to work together on the agenda that he had out, which was primarily to create an alliance, an allegiance between Israel and the royal governments, particularly of Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, against Qatar and against Iran and against the Islamo-fundamentalists. They gladly did, and did so quite effectively, leading to the Abraham Accords that he could use as the foundation to break through the Islamo-fascist agenda against Israel as its first proxy against the Islamo-fascism in general. Trump believed he achieved substantial objectives by the aid he provided. But ultimately, that more becomes a debate about whether U.S. policy is smart or wise with how it is leveraged for an aid. But you could raise the same question about the 5 times more money we've given to the Islamic countries that are enemies of Israel.
So let's give Lloyd says a chance to come back, and then you are a response to that, Robert.
Okay, so I would say the best case example is in the Syrian civil war. We know that the Syrian civil war is what caused a crisis into Europe in 2015 because of people fleeing the disaster there, one of the worst humanitarian disasters in the world. And it was the of the United States under the Trump administration in 2017. They stopped pursuing regime change. Now, remember, it was April 2017 because that shortly precipitated, that was, I think, 3 or 4 days before the first missile strikes against the airfield, I think it was in Homs, Syria, in April 2017, when Xi Jinping was visiting Mar-a-Lago. So the American government, the Trump administration said, we're not pursuing. Why? Because the fall of Assad and the Syrian civil war led to the rise of ISIS. We know that there was no moderate Muslim opposition. There was Assad, and then you had ISIS, and then you had other proxy groups from Saudi Arabia and other countries. And so it was the position of America that in order to stabilize Syria, we tacitly were allowing Bashar al-Assad to reclaim control of the country, which would have been the smart America First policy, because Assad was cooperating with the United States government. Assad tortured terrorists for America. You know, Assad really was not a bad actor. And we didn't have a bad relationship with Syria, but It was the Israeli policy that Assad had to go and that Syria had to be dismembered so that Israel could secure their northern border with Lebanon. And so while Trump wanted to shore up the Assad regime, and that was the official policy articulated by the UN State Department not to depose Assad, Israel continued throughout the Trump administration to launch airstrikes against regime forces, against Assad's forces. This helped ISIS. Donald Trump came in saying that he wanted to eradicate ISIS. Assad and the Russian army were the ones fighting ISIS. And so there's a perfect example where there's a conflict between the American and Israeli interest in Syria, in the Middle East. America wanted stability and the defeat of ISIS. Israel, I think they benefited from ISIS, and actually some of this, their top intelligence chief and their defense minister both said that they would prefer ISIS to Iran. And there was one instance when ISIS attacked Israel, I think in 2013, to the state of Israel for attacking them mistakenly. And so, I mean, that was one of the clearest indications to me where...
Let's lower that for a minute. Let's lower that Inf0wars for a minute.
You guys can back and forth as long as you want. A particular topic, you just let...
So,
all right.
Just want to, we just got to cut in about every, couple minutes or so. So, talking about ISIS and Middle East, the breaking down of the Middle East so far. First of all, who's Robert Barnes? What's he known for?
Okay, let me give like a little bit of background, because I don't know, most people probably have heard the names of both of them, but Nick Fuentes is you probably most recently heard of him. He was actually banned off of a publicly available flight. He wasn't allowed to take a flight because of his political affiliation, and they wouldn't tell him why. I think he actually has a section here on band.video too, as well as Robert Barnes. They're both good dudes. I actually don't know the whole history. Well, I know the history. Israel and Palestine have been fighting for millennia, so that's just how it is. But yeah, so Nick Fuentes, you said before Royper or whatever, he's got that background or whatever. But Robert Barnes, he's a constitutional lawyer. He's been involved with a lot of big lawsuits constitutionally. More recently, with the mask stuff, he's been doing some things there. You can look into that. But yeah, they're debating today the stance on Israel. Our stance on that, basically, the crisis in general too in the Middle East.
All right, let's go back then and check on what they're saying.
Oh, and right before we go back, I want to say one other thing. The reason for the cutout is it's not the source where we're getting this video from. It's free to air. You can cut it up. He says that it's openly available. So I'm assuming you just you're afraid of YouTube just because of the host in general, right?
Well, just because covering anything, covering anything related to anything like this.
Yeah.
The algorithms are so smart now, so.
You would only get in trouble because of the character who is hosting it. The content itself, is free to air. I was saying,
no, there's nothing wrong with the content. But what I'm saying is that they have, YouTube has triggers. For the algorithm in place. Look what Project Veritas just exposed with the. That Facebook was basically suppressing anything about, related to the vaccine health, and they had certain codes that, or certain keywords would flag it and then automatically demote it, so.
But it's not it's a difference. They'll get you one way or another if they want to get you on the platform. That they'll allow things like cuties on Netflix, that's okay, or the gory stuff you can see on what's that? TikTok. I'm sorry, TikTok. Whatever you can see on there and everything, all that stuff is okay. But if it's got the wrong political narrative leaning to it, then that's when it gets suppressed. But the point I was trying to make is this is copyright. You wouldn't get in trouble for that. Just so you know, if you didn't know that.
All right, let's go back to Nick.
The Palestinians say we're going to blow you up and drive you into the sea and kill you. Well, I mean, sorry, Israel's got nuclear weapons. I don't think you want that. So if you could wave a magic wand, how would you morally fix this? What do you recommend the Palestinians and the Israelis? Or if it was a perfect world, what would be going on there right now?
Well, I mean, as far as the Israeli-Palestinian conflict goes, I actually understand the position of Israel in the sense that, Israel, the Zionist project, which was to create a Jewish settlement in the Middle East, they were, fleeing persecution or whatever. I understand why they're, oppressing the Palestinians, for lack of a better word. It's a lot of leftists, and there are some anti-Israel people on the left who make it a humanitarian thing. I can sympathize with that a little bit, but that's not really my main gripe. My issue is the one-sided and unconditional support that America gives to Israel. In an ideal world, I would say that we should cut the foreign aid. We should pull our troops out of Iraq and Afghanistan. We should stop pursuing nation-building regime change in the Middle East to benefit Israel at our expense. And I would say that we should treat Israel like other states, in particular like our other allies. When Trump got into office, he said, well, we want NATO to pay its fair share, and we want South Korea to pay for their troops. But with Israel, we're going to recognize their sovereignty over the Golan Heights, and we're going to call the IRGC a terrorist group, and we're going to do everything that Israel wants. And so I just want some degree of normalcy, because what it is right now, and this is a loaded term, it describes what's going on, it's sort of parasitism, where they get everything and we get nothing in return. And it's not negligible. The cost is significant to Americans. It comes to our detriment, and the detriment is severe. So,
but my question is, what do you do with Israel with 500 nuclear weapons and submarines and cruise missiles and all the rest of it? I mean, it's not going anywhere, is what I'm saying to the Muslims. And you went to college and saw the neocon agenda in college and heard a bunch of Muslims saying America sucks. So, I mean, there's also that going on, is I think what Barnes is getting at. And I actually agree with both of you. You can see both sides of this. I'm saying you want, as an American, let's say, but in the big picture, what is your view of Israel's very existence?
Well, I think that Israel is there, and like you said, their nuclear arsenal, and their policy is the Samson option, which is like they'll bring down everything if they start to go under. So I think that Israel is going to stick around, but I think that they should just be contained, because it's an expansionist project, and their expansion is creating a lot of negative consequences for Europe, for the Middle East, and for America. So I think that, everybody makes it a thing to say, oh, do you support Israel's right to exist? I don't necessarily know what that even means. Israel's there, they're not going anywhere, and I think the American policy should basically be to work.
I've literally never heard that Israel is expansionist. Like, you could say that, like, they were defending, like, with the Golan Heights and everything. Like, it's not expansionist. They're not going in, like, they're surrounded, Like, it's not like they're, like, a Mongolian, like, or like, that's ridiculous. Come on.
What do you think Israel's role?
So two components there. I mean, I think the myth that Israel is secretly running U.S. foreign policy is just the idea that the U.S. deep state is really being run by Israel. 5 times more money to Israel's enemies probably should be a bit of a clue. But putting that aside, look, I'll just use one historical example. The famous 1996 paper written by American neocons was an attempt to persuade the newly elected Netanyahu to opt out of the Oslo Accords and to support war in Iraq. Netanyahu rejected it, indeed, in part because he rejected it and shook hands with Arafat when he said he would in 1999. The reality was, of course, the whole background of the Oslo Accords is it was once again another Palestinian lie that Clinton took the bait on and was suckered into, because they have no intention for peace. They want to wipe Israel out from the river to the sea, as they've been saying for more than a century. So getting to the current situation that we are in, the reality is Israel is going to be there. Israel's not an expansionist agenda. If anything, they've probably been expansionistic enough. If they did what the Jordanians did when they took over Jerusalem, or what Egypt did when they took over, the Gaza, what did they do? Well, Jordan came into historic Jerusalem, wiped out the Christians, kicked out all Jewish people, burned down the churches, burned down the synagogue. They did real ethnic cleansing, like they did throughout their entire Arab populations, where they kicked out 800,000 Jews. Try to find hardly any Jews or Christians left anywhere in the Arab world. They almost don't exist because of Arab policy. So what we know is, what Israel did when they took over the West Bank and the Gaza, which were part of the historic mandate they legally had entitlement to under international law, they didn't do that. They didn't kick anybody out. They even recognized Jordanian title, which was illicit for the people in East Jerusalem. And so because they didn't, they have a hostile population trying to wage war on them on a daily basis since 1988. So the reality is there's only one side in this binary choice. It's Israel, not Islamofascism.
They recently saw a Democrat congresswoman, I forget her name, they can pull it up, a black lady. She came out and said Christian Zionists are to blame for the war in Israel, basically for Israel's existence. I thought that was an asinine statement on its face, but what is the role of Christian Zionists? It is a big movement, it is a staple of many, many churches in the West to support Israel's existence, I guess because of revelations in biblical times. And that's part one. And then part two is a lot of them are having problems with Netanyahu implanting children with microchips to track them for COVID. Robert Barnes, your take on that?
Yeah, so, I mean, the reason why the real reason for Israel to support the United States has nothing to do with Jewish influence. Indeed, the most prominent anti-Israeli people like Finkelstein and Chomsky are themselves Jewish. There's been a long...
Alex Jones should host every single debate, like presidential debate going forward.
It's because of evangelical Christians. And while there's a small portion of evangelical Christians that support it for prophetic religious reasons, for 95% of evangelical Christians, it's for two reasons. They've studied it for their own personal reasons and have recognized the reality that in almost every dispute, there's Palestinian propaganda, and then a reality that almost always sides with Israel if we were in a court of law or the court of honest public opinion. Also, it's because Israel is the only nation that will protect the Holy Land. So if you're a Christian, you have complete access and complete religious freedom in Israel. You do not have that and did not have it when Jordan had Jerusalem. That's what woke up evangelical Christians when their churches were getting burned down and their Christians were getting expelled from Jerusalem from 1948 to 1967. They realized there was only, if you care at all about access to the Holy Land and protection of the Holy Land, there's only one side to be on, and it ain't the side of the Islamofascists and Inf0war.
All right, let's go ahead and go back to Mr. Fuentes. Your take on what he just said, your response.
Okay, so in the first place, I wanted to address one, and hopefully we could circle back to it. Robert, you keep saying that America gives 5 times as much money to Israel's enemies as to Israel, and I just wonder where that figure is coming from. Maybe we could circle back to that after we...
Well, let's go ahead and cover that now, because he's challenging you. Where's that number from?
Sure, it's from the U.S. Foreign Aid official stats. So just go through all the Islamic countries that we support. I mean, right now, our biggest support is Afghanistan. And then we have usually $1 billion plus a year given to Iraq, given to Egypt, given to Sudan, different times given to Nigeria. So we have long funded the other nations that have historic animosity towards Israel, nations that are Islamic. And you can argue about that foreign aid, but again, I don't think any of it's actual foreign aid. It's U.S. getting leverage over foreign nations they don't want to forfeit by suddenly and summarily withdrawing. I understand the opposition to foreign aid, but it has to come with the realization that giving it up means bye-bye U.S. leverage.
Well, yeah, the reason I ask is because I've looked at stats from the Congressional Research Service, which says that Israel gets 60% of total foreign military financing from the United States, and they've been the #1 recipient since 1978. And if you look at the other countries like Egypt, for example, Jordan, Egypt and Jordan are not Israel's enemy. Egypt and Jordan have normalized relations with Israel, received lots of foreign aid. Egypt in 1978, after they signed a peace treaty with Israel, and Jordan in the
How's that whiskey?
Same. So, one could argue almost that the foreign aid that's given to Egypt and Jordan, which are arguably bare minimum have normalized relations with Israel, are themselves maybe perhaps an extension of the aid to Israel, because the aid is contingent upon the fact that they, like I said, in Egypt in 78, they promised not to declare war on Israel, and the same with Jordan in the early 1990s. And what's more is that Israel gets special provisions, and it's interesting because you say, well, they get this foreign aid, but it's not really foreign aid.
Yeah, lower that for a sec.
Buy anything, it just buys like vague support for our war against Islamofascism. But they also get special accommodations in the aid too, like.
Guess
All right.
Guess how many viewers we got.
3.
Close.
How many?
We got 2.
Nice. All right.
Hey, it's one more than 1.
Hey, you know what? We're not even hitting the 10 that you were like cracking jokes about me about. I don't care. I want to watch it anyway, but like, I don't know. What's your thoughts so far? Like, as I take this shot of, you know, the side of the debate. You know, obviously Nick is more. You know, I would kind of compare him to like a Ben Shapiro, I would say. And I mean, they're both like, you know, friends of Alex, which, you know, is kind of like a banned person, obviously. But like,
wait, you would relate Nick Shapiro to Ben? I mean, Nick Fuentes to Ben Shapiro?
Yeah, I would in a sense. Like, he's kind of like, I don't know.
Nick Fuentes hates him. Hates Ben Shapiro.
I would put him as like, I don't know, just like they're all in like, I just feel like they're just kind of fake. Like, I don't care what they stand for, if they hate each other or not. Like, I don't know.
Oh,
maybe I just don't know that much about Nick. I just kind of like grouped him in with like those like Reupers. Maybe I misunderstood that whole situation. Like I honestly, but like the vibe, like I would say I'm kind of on Barnes' side, like just out at the bat, and that's just me. But I'm gonna take the shot, and you tell me what you think.
Well, they're gonna go. Now you're drinking that. I'm gonna go get some one of those Bud Light seltzer things down at the gas station. I'm gonna go walk the dogs. Sometimes
You're gonna walk. How are you gonna walk the dogs and run a stream?
I'm not gonna run it. I'm gonna end it soon.
Can you just leave it running and like I'll just keep it playing?
Well, the problem with that is that they'll most likely take that down and then strike the channel. So I'd rather.
All I gotta do is like mute it every once in a while, right?
No. I say just continue to stream it in the Discord. Because there's no point of risking the channel for fucking 2 viewers. I'm sorry, it's fucking retarded.
That's true. I got that. But like, you understood what I was saying though before, right? Like how like the content itself is not copyrightable. So like, it's not like you're gonna get copyright. Like, it's literally the only trouble you could get is because of who is hosting.
Right. No, that's what I'm saying. But that's not like it's. I know it already happens. Like, because they'll hit my videos like from 2 years ago, like if AJ is speaking in them, or if any of these people or any of these keywords are mentioned or anything like that. I'm telling you, the algorithm is constantly just running through the entire database of YouTube and just scanning it, you know, and just constantly scanning it.
That's what it does. Like, it transcribes like your text. So like, if you put on closed captioning, that means like the YouTube like algorithm listen to every word that we like. If we come back to this video a couple hours later and there's transcripts, that means you're right. Like, I agree with what you're saying. So like, no, that's a valid point, and I understand that completely. I'm just saying, like, I could keep the show going and like, you know, do the things that you wanted, like, you know, cutting out every once in a while. But like, I understand you don't want to risk it if you're not there. That's do like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's better just for us to do now we're getting at least the format down and the technicalities down, and
Learning a lot.
so what we have to work on now is thumbnails and title headlines that are really clickbaity, and thumbnails that are clickbaity thumbnails. And and what?
My hardware is one. Like, we got to work on that whole situation.
I mean, I don't think it. I mean, maybe get a new microphone, for better voice quality. But other than that, I mean, your camera is obviously clear enough, so that's good.
Like, more like you know, you're running like YouTube stream, and like that's cool. Like, I want to. Like I was telling you in the chat earlier, and also let me preface it with this. Since he's gonna end the stream, Like anybody who wants to continue watching, like it's gonna be in the Discord. And I don't know if you see it, like, you know, there's only 2 people, but if I don't know.
I put the link in the description of the video, so they could just click that link, and that should take them. So if anybody, yeah, I mean that's the thing. Eventually, when we start getting some numbers and we actually have a good show going, so that's what I'm saying. Like, you know what you should do? You should kind of go through the, like what we were doing before, where you made those, you know, rooms where you could put in topics for the show, and so I think that's a good idea. Or you made the docket room or whatever. So,
I really like that. That was a good format. Like we didn't actually go through it though. That was the thing. Like we were supposed to like go through the list, and like we didn't. We should like we got to get like a schedule down. Like I'm saying hardware is part of my issue, but like it's also like you said, technicalities. Like I think there's still improvements for that. Like as far as on my end, I got to do like some work with like OBS. I want to be able to like stream at like your level, what you're doing, you know, which like is really good. Like you put out really good content. Like, you know, you put out good thumbnails and like, you know, it's good content.
and it gets no views because I don't know. Maybe if I think fucking they shadow banned my IP address or something.
That's probably it. But like, you know, you only had what, like 1,000 subscribers. Not only like that's like.
What, the Boston Vegas channel?
Yeah, the big one. But like, bro.
And the other one was almost dead. So we could probably, you know what we'll do is when the other one gets unbanned, we'll use this format on the other channel because it's still got like 800 subscribers.
Yeah, and the bell click or whatever, they'll get notified if you're live.
And then I could just switch this, and then we could make that. We could switch the main one. Well, I don't know.
We'll plan it out.
Yeah.
We should at least like pick like a Burn Your Bridges, Boston Vegas Burn Your Bridges like day that we're gonna stream. Like if it's like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, like those are my 3 good days that I could like carve out like a couple hours that we could dedicate to streaming like weekly, and not just streaming, but like a pre-hand, like maybe like 30 minutes beforehand, like yo, this is like, you know, before we go live, you and me talk or whatever. Because I think we did that one time, and that stream was probably our best stream.
Shots fired in George Floyd Square in Minneapolis.
Yeah, while they were like doing their tribute or whatever, someone drove by and did like.
Wow, talk about a shithole. It looks like a shithole. Look at that. It looks terrible. I don't want to live there. You see how nice fucking Vegas looks in the pictures I send? It's all clean and shit, and everything's brand new.
Bro, if I ever come back to Vegas,
fancy. Imagine living in a city like fucking Baltimore.
Yeah, no, thank you.
But if I ever, did you see? Do you know who Donut Operator is?
Donut Operator? No, I don't.
Oh, dude, you gotta check out that channel. So he does like, you know, police shooting breakdowns and basically anytime it's like, you know, blue man bad stuff with like, you know, typical like George Floyd or any of these incidents that happen. Like he does breakdowns of like the actual, like the real truth and like the angle from all the officers and all that stuff.
Is he kind of like? Is he kind of like a? What was that guy's name?
Like there's
Mr. Obvious. Kind of like that.
Well, Mr. Obvious does more like Tim Pool basic content. So Donut Operator, he's more focused on the police like shootings and stuff.
Oh, so he's content specific to that.
Yeah, but he's got over 1 million followers. I think he's got a couple million now, so it's a pretty big channel. But anyway, so he was showing this breakdown of this shooting in I think it was in Baltimore, man. And the fucking guy, the house. Yeah, if you search it, go search on YouTube. Donut Operator on YouTube, and then it should be the first video that. Well, his channel's probably fucking demoted too. You spelled donut wrong.
Oh shit. Whatever. I did. I fat fingered that. Donut operator. What am I doing?
Just hit enter, and just go to his channel.
Sometimes I type.
Yeah, that one. Suspect blows up his own house before fighting. So, it's pretty sick. But yeah, he's got good content, man. He'll show the whole breakdown. But anyway, the house was on fucking. So this was in Baltimore because I was talking about Baltimore. But anyways, the house. So the cops show up to the scene. The guy already killed like 2 or 3 people. House is on fire. Yeah, go to the part where the house is on fire.
It's like kind of laggy. I don't know why. Because I'm streaming still.
Because you need a new fucking... Damn, bro. You need a new CPU. You need a new GPU, a new CPU.
I'm working on it. I'm working on it, bro.
Some more memory, some more RAM.
You know what?
That computer's struggling right there.
I'm here, bro. I'm here. What's up? I'm here. I'm making it work. All right, there it is. I saw it.
So
can I unmute it? No.
Yeah, unmute it and then go back to the beginning when the shooting starts.
He accused his neighbors.
I'll go back to the beginning.
Not all the way to the beginning. Just go back to the beginning of the shooting. Yeah, right over there. Put it in theater mode so you can still see.
May 8th, 2021, 40 a.m. Someone called 911 and said they heard a bunch of heavy stuff.
And I think it is a house. There is a house where the men have signs all over his house that the FBI is after me, and we've known for years that he has a mental health problem. And I think that is okay. Signs all over his truck and on the front of his house. But he has always never been trouble in the neighborhood. But I did just hear 3 gunshots. So I don't know.
So he doesn't get copyrighted.
So it is on fire. It's on a house.
So he's smart.
A house exploded. You said you heard gunfire and then a house exploded and it's on fire.
Damn.
Yes.
That's
and there's
crazy.
a victim on the ground. Who's got a victim on the ground shot? Okay.
Yeah.
There's a misery. It's on fire. We got gunfire.
Can you imagine?
With the guy who lived in the house, he shot a lady and then he came back out shooting her. He's still holding a gun. He's still holding a gun. Okay.
This is definitely, right off the bat, not a good situation to pull up to. It's already a shit show of a call to respond to, and the first officer on scene, Officer Irwin, has no idea exactly what he's walking into. Pulling up on scene, he sees a house fully engulfed in flames, and upon stepping out of his patrol car, starts taking fire from some psychopath.
Sorry, did you say something?
No.
Okay.
Shot fired. This psychopath is right here. Officer Irwin immediately seeks cover in front of his patrol car to assess the situation. Shot fired. Drop the gun! Which is a pretty crazy situation to quickly assess, seeing as how there's a house on fire, body.
Damn. That was crazy.
Yeah.
He's laying in the front yard and a dude is shooting at you. Little did the officer know the suspect had just killed 3 of his neighbors and wounded them using a gun and a knife. According to reports, neighbors described the suspect as paranoid that his house was constantly monitored and sometimes the FBI and other federal agencies. Reports said that he accused his neighbors who he attacked of helping out the authorities. The officer runs to another car to get some better cover and a better angle to return fire, and his first shot is fucking golden, boys.
He one-tapped him, bro. He one-tapped him.
You already need the double tap.
You can see the guy go down too, right at the arrow there.
Yeah, that's why I like YouTube. Actually, if you didn't know, you can use like next to the question mark, those little arrows. You can go frame by frame. Watch the moment. You click those. I don't know why my GPU is.
Now your internet connection is struggling.
It dropped. It's not over.
That is not the weak link. It is actually this crappy laptop.
Okay. Okay.
We got Gray in the middle of the screen. Oh, there it goes.
Yeah, that's the GPU.
So yeah. Anyways, yeah, you don't have to play the rest of the video, but basically, because we were talking about
scene after that very fine marksmanship.
Yeah, they end up just fucking putting a bunch of lead in the dude. Like they shoot him like fucking 50 times.
Just like to give him credit, like like we did like play his thing. Technically, this is Donut Operator.
2.64 million subscribers. Yeah, he's got a very. You'll like his channel, man. He's got
So yeah, I might already. I recognize this. I might already. This is not like my account that I'm signed in here, so I might already be subscribed.
Oh yeah.
Don't let you talk about my son.
Alright, so anyways,
10 years old, which means he's old enough.
Cut out right here. Discord. Alright, dude, so tomorrow is what? Wednesday?
Yep. Like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, like weekend streams, like I like those, but I'll do any day like after 5:30 Eastern time. So you're in Vegas. That's like 2 hours behind me, right?
Yeah, I think we don't have to stick to a set schedule. I think we just like jump on. We both have free time, like tonight or whatever it's whenever it's convenient. And then also, I think I like this format. So let's just see. Let's end the show here. Let's see if it comes back with any, because I have the Fox up in the corner there. You have the the info stuff on the on your screen. So let me just let's just give it a day or two, because let's let the algorithm, because you don't know how many times after I finish the stream, then I get an email like fucking 6 hours later or 12 hours later or like 2 days later, like that the stream was taken down. So it's like that's what I'm saying. It might even be good for like a couple of days, and then all of a sudden, in one day next week, I'll get a notice that our stream was taken down and the channel was blocked. So that's why I think me and you have to do the majority of the show, at least like 80% us, and then the other 20% we can play some of the other stuff. So I think that was the perfect format what we did tonight, though. We played one viral video.
As a segue of what you're talking about. This, we could play some other content,
exactly
like this. The YouTube algorithm, basically.
Hey guys, it's Blue Show, and we're hosting.
Anyway, y'all see the Blue Show. Anyway, basically the YouTube algorithm.
Anyway, there's dead people on the side of Venice Beach or on Needles over there in California. Oh my God, look at that. That is so disgusting. Wow. What a shithole. That's terrible. Terrible, terrible, terrible. I can't believe that's America.
Look at those guys walking around with no shoes on. Dummies. That's how you get the AIDS.
Alright, dude, I'm gonna end it here. Take the dogs out. I'll talk to you later.
Alright, dude. Talk to you later. Peace.
Peace.